Paul Simon sang that there are 50 ways to leave your lover. Well, there could now be 51 because couples may be able to divorce online under a new pilot scheme which will launch a little later this year. The plan apparently has the backing of England's most senior family judge. The detractors claim that making divorce easier could actually end up leading to more families breaking up. We're joined by Andrea Williams, who's Chief Executive of Christian Concern, who is concerned about moves to make divorce any easier, and by the divorce lawyer Lisette Dupre. A very good afternoon to both of you. Lisette, can I start with you? There's a sort of depressing element to this story, which is, I think, every New Year's we get stories about divorce because the idea seems to run that couples have spent too long together in the heated atmosphere of the domestic environment over Christmas, and lo and behold, at the end of that period, they don't like each other very much. But setting that aside, how does divorce currently work, and how might moving it online make it easier in your view?
Currently, to divorce, a couple would need to download a divorce petition, complete it, or an individual would complete it, lodge it with the court with their court fee and their marriage certificate. So in terms of the change online divorce is going to make to that process, it's going to streamline it in that instead of having to post the petition and your fee and your marriage certificate, you will be able to lodge it online.
To be clear, as things currently stand, Lisette, it's all done old-fashioned on paper.
Yes.
OK. Andrew, what's the problem that you have? I'm guessing you have a problem with that. What is the problem with that?
Well, I think that this is just another in a long series of situations of ways in which we, as a matter of policy in this country, have sought to make divorce easier. And I think that's tragic for everyone when we consider just how important marriage is, how it's the cornerstone of society, and how we should be doing all that we can to keep marriages together, not to simplify the process for people parting from one another. And of course, it's not just a husband and a wife, but very often children are involved. So actually, as a matter of policy, we should be doing all that we can to keep the couple together and families together. After all, what is marriage? It's a lifelong commitment. It's a vow to stay until death we part, for richer, for poorer, in sickness, in health, for better or for worse. And I think for government policy to try and make the smashing of that even simpler is not the right direction to go in at all. Well,
Lisette, I mean, I'm trying to recollect the exact wording, but isn't it something like an estate not likely to be entered into? I mean, that's the whole point, isn't it? You're joining a club, you're making a public statement of commitment. It's meant to be hard to get into, ergo it shouldn't be easy to get out of. You run the risk of making it ephemeral.
I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree with the sentiment. And of course, everyone is entitled to their own opinion about divorce and whether they agree with it or disagree with it for their own reasons. But we live in a society where divorce is a reality, and in those circumstances we owe it to members of society to make that process as quick and as least acrimonious as possible, not only for the parties but crucially, as we've discussed, for the children. And as I say, the change between the current system, which is a paper-based system and takes between 5-6 months if all runs smoothly, and an online system, I don't think is going to impact the reality of individuals, couples wanting to get divorced.
Andrea, is there a danger that, lawyers fulfil a function, but there's a danger, is there, perhaps, that we distance ourselves too much from the morality of the thing by looking too much at the process of the thing?
Well, I think that we don't have to say as a society that 120,000 divorces per year is just our reality, and we have to work through that and make it as simple as possible, just in administrative things for that to happen. Only 50 years ago, there were much fewer divorces, about 19,000 divorces at that time. And so I think it would be good for us to consider why in the simplifying of divorce and the way that we've treated divorce is much less serious than we previously have done, why we would want to keep on, in a sense, maintaining or increasing those numbers. 115,000 or 120,000 divorces per year, those are the statistics over the past few years, is tragic. it's a kind of national tragedy.
I don't think Lisette demurs from that point. She's just simply saying there's a demand that has to be met. I mean, just to be clear, Andrea, what sort of deterrent to divorce would you like to see, ideally? What would be optimal? I mean, quite clearly, you don't want to see divorce made easier. Do you want to see a return to substantial stigma? What do you want?
I think what we need to do as a society is consider something that you, in fact, mentioned earlier in this piece, which is about the seriousness of entering into marriage. And actually, as a matter of policy, as a society, to be thinking about what we're doing when we do enter into marriage, when couples enter into marriage, and actually helping them to understand the seriousness of the commitment that they have made. Increasingly, as government policy has moved away from that, for instance, by redefining marriage, by permitting civil partnerships, by making divorce increasingly easier to access, what we've done is move away from how precious and beautiful and lifelong the vows are to stay together for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death we part. And actually, it's really about learning and holding very tightly to the heart of our nation and the heart of our laws, to those great vows that we make. And when we make them on our wedding day, to make sure that we know exactly what it is that we're doing. And then as a society to ensure that we uphold that, and we work for models to seek to uphold that.
From what I've read about this, there are some commentators who seem to think what we're witnessing here is a bit of pitch rolling, in the sense that this is a step towards no-fault divorce. What is no-fault divorce, and is this a step towards it?
No-fault divorce is the concept of a couple choosing to divorce by agreement and effectively signing a document to say they both agree a marriage has broken down irretrievably. Now, that is a change because the divorce laws that we currently have are some 40 years old, and presently you need to state either that there's been adultery or unreasonable behaviour, and with that there needs to be 4 examples of unreasonable behaviour, or there are 3 other grounds which all involve periods of separation in excess of 2 years. So no-fault divorce would sidestep what is currently the trend, which is for couples that have decided they want to divorce, rather than have to trump up charges against each other, make up allegations that are upsetting to draft and upsetting to read, they can sidestep that and simply say, we both agree that this marriage has come to an end. And that takes away the sting of divorce. It will almost certainly assist in avoiding potentially a court hearing if, for instance, one couple was very upset about the allegations and wanted to defend that divorce. And I would add that defended divorces are practically non-existent now. So we are effectively admitting to what has happened over the last 40 years and saying that divorce is a reality. Society in the 1970s is very different to the society we live in today. Divorce, I'm afraid, is a reality, however regretful that is. But in those circumstances, we are coming up with a solution that is better for families.
Yeah. Lisette, just to be clear, you don't feel that by making divorce easier, you are devaluing the institution, do you? Because there will be some people who will think logically, for it to be an institution of value, it's got to be hard to get into it. You know, flying off to Vegas on a whim is not really the right ground. You know what I'm saying. And you make it easier to get out of. You're devaluing the thing, are you not?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. Primarily because divorce is a concept that is common throughout the world. But the divorce process varies dramatically throughout the world.
So you can say that again. You can really say that again. Yeah, you try divorcing in some countries. Okay, and Andrea, you're tilting at windmills a little bit, aren't you? Because actually, the number of people getting divorced, number of people getting married in this country is declining. But people are entering into it with their eyes open, they're marrying later, and perhaps because of that, those marriages are proving more durable, and ergo you're tilting at windmills a little bit, because actually divorce is not in, marriage is not necessarily in rude health, but it's in better health than it was a year ago.
Well, it's good if people want to get married understanding how serious marriage is, but divorce is serious too, and we shouldn't trivialise it. And it doesn't have to be our reality that there are 120,000 divorces every year in our nation, and we should surely be working to lower that number. We aren't different from a society in many ways, in terms of what we hope for in marriage in the 1970s, when there were much fewer divorces. So what is it that has shifted? Well, I think in many ways we've trivialised divorce over these recent decades. And in fact, we need to get back to how serious and how beautiful the marriage commitments actually are, and that they are to be lifelong commitments, and that therefore divorce should be rare and should be under the most extreme of circumstances, not because two people are just simply not getting on anymore.
Andrea Williams, Lisette Dupre, thanks both very much indeed. Interesting stuff. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.